Hi everyone, this will be a quick video. I will show you an example for the Burr library that implements an OpenAI API compatible server for your Burr application. So OpenAI, it's no secret, occupies a large market share of the large language model LLM space right now. And most people interacted with ChatGPT. It's a nice web interface, but behind the scene is just a server receiving and responding to HTTP requests. So the most common endpoint is V1 chat completions that allows us to send a prompt and then have a response by the chat agent. And it keeps track of the history of conversation and it goes on and on. There are other LLM providers like Cohere, HuggingFace that have their own set of endpoints. But given the influence of OpenAI, a lot of open source libraries, like those mentioned here, implement some sort of OpenAI API compatible interface. So Ollama is a way to run LLMs locally. Jan, that we'll be using in this video, is a front end for uh, chat models. Same for text-generation-webui, which has a large catalog of extensions and plugins. And there are other things like code assistance. So Continue or the llm-vscode extension by HuggingFace and even the LLM CLI tool. All of these allow some sort of interactions with OpenAI API compatible servers. And when I say OpenAI API compatible, what I mean is we're not poking OpenAI itself. We are implementing our own server that will respect these endpoints and their expected requests and responses. So what it allows us to do in particular, which is very cool, is if we're deploying our Burr app behind this, we get all of the visibility and observability of Burr in production. So the logging, also the state checkpointing, the forking. Those might be advanced features, but they come very handy when you have to debug or you want to improve your agent. And another thing that's very cool is the persistence, because since OpenAI itself is a private company, each tool has to implement their sort of a persistent or memory mechanism on the front end because they don't own OpenAI, they don't own the backend. So what happens is all your tools that are super smart, they live in silos. But by adopting Burr and owning the backend, you get the opportunity to persist the state and share that state across all your OpenAI API compatible tools. This is a mouthful. So for example, you would be able to share and resume a conversation that you're having between your chat front end that's very clean for conversations, but also your coding assistant or even your CLI. I shared some link here of different implementations of these OpenAI API compatible servers, so you're able to dig further. So my agent, it's a dummy bot. It does very little actually. It looks at the user input, which is a string. It looks for the word time in it. If there's the word time, it will return me the current date time. Otherwise, it will tell me to ask it about the time. Very simple. I build the application here. It has one transition from a point to itself, and it's the entry point, which means it's a single node looping over itself. And now let's look at the server. There might be a lot if you're unfamiliar with FastAPI, but FastAPI has great documentation and it should be easy for you to build incrementally. So here we have like the standard lib stuff that we'll need. We import FastAPI, which will define our application. UVcorn is a way to run and deploy, serve our FastAPI application. And then we'll use Burr, the application type, just to type annotate our stuff. And these are pydantic models from the official OpenAI libraries. We'll just use that for auto-completion and being sure we send the proper response. Because since we're interacting with another tool, it expects things that are exactly the same as what OpenAI would share with it. And I import my agent. So we set a logger. we set a Burr app. We want this Burr app to be available to our full FastAPI application. So we need to define a global variable. We set it to none initially. And then in this lifespan function, which you can read about in the FastAPI documentation, we write to the global Burr app and we build it here. Then there's the yield statement. That's intricacies of the lifespan. But if we wanted to like connect to a database, we could have db connect to db, and we could have like disconnect from db. Because this will, after the yield, will happen when we shut down our server. So you might want to close stuff related to your Burr application. We give this lifespan object to our app, and then we create our endpoint. So app.post, so it's a post request. We send it information for it to complete. And this needs to be the right signature, the same one as OpenAI. It will take a request and our Burr application. We use the FastAPI depends, which means each time we're poking the endpoint, we want this function to execute successfully. And this just looks for the global Burr app and it returns it. If there's ever a problem where the Burr app is not available, it will raise this error. Okay, so the body of the function is very simple. We convert the request to a JSON dictionary. We look at the messages. So this is a standard field in the OpenAI type of messages or requests. So it must be familiar. -1 gives us the last message in the list, so the most recent message. And we use that as the input for our DOM bot. And when you run your Burr app, it returns 3 things. We care only about the result. And this is a lot of, it's very wordy, but the only things that you need to be aware of is you have many choices that you need to return, and we will return a single choice. This choice, the index doesn't really matter. If you have multiple choices, they should have different indices. And here we return a message that has the role assistant, and this is the Burr result object that we returned. So the demo will be very simple with this one. We will launch the server. Oh, sorry, I'm not under the right directory. This is OpenAI. Also, just one cool thing is when you're developing, you can put reload true and give it the name. So this is the current file, and this is the function that we want to, well, the FastAPI object. So whenever you change code, it will relaunch the server. Now, Jan here, that's very easy to install and is cross-platform. I'll say hello. So our bot asks us about the time. What time is it? And it returns the proper response. So this is very cool. The only thing that you need to be aware of when dealing with UIs or other tools is OpenAI enables both a blocking mode and a streaming mode, so streaming or non-streaming. And by default, it might be streaming enabled. So in this case, the case of Jan, I had to debug a bit. There's a stream here that you need to turn off. If I turn it on and I say hello, it will succeed, but it won't return anything because we don't know how to handle this here when we have a streaming request. So I will let you explore how to use the streaming for Burr, but it's very much possible. So thank you.